Hare Krishna and welcome to the Vaishnavi ministry. Today we are honored to delve into the divine pastimes and the spiritual significance of one of the most revered figures in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, Srimati Lalita Devi. As a central figure in the eternal realm of Vrindavan, Lalita Devi holds a position of immense importance and affection in the hearts of devotees. Lalita Devi is not just a prominent gopi, but she's also the chief amongst the Asthasakhis, which is the eight principal friends of Srimati Radharani. Her role extends far beyond that of mere companion, and she embodies the essence of devoted service, protective friendship, and unwavering loyalty. Known for her unique blend of boldness and loving intimacy, Lalita Devi plays a crucial role in orchestrating the divine pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So before we begin, let us offer some prayers to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashitadve Sutta. So I'd like to welcome, we're on the call, but I'd like to welcome Radhika Kripa, who will be delving into these wonderful pastimes. So I think my first question, we can start off as who is Lalita Saki?
I think just like a precursor to the whole thing, I feel like Lalita Devi and Lalita Saki is just, it's such a deep esoteric subject matter. So I think I'm coming from a perspective of just my limited understanding, and hopefully I can do justice to it. But when I was thinking of Lalita Devi, I was like, okay, there's so much about Radha and Krishna. So I think in order to understand Lalita Devi, we first need to understand who is Srimati Radharani. Because even in all the pastimes, like you never hear of Lalita Devi by herself. It's always with Krishna, with Srimati Radharani. So if we look at Chaitanya Charitamrita, I feel like it's like so many jewels in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But once you start reading it, it's
yes,
like so much of nectar. Like you just, like I just get blown away every time I read it. But in Adi Lila, chapter 4, there's like verses 56 to around 61, and it's describing for Radha and Krishna one and the same, but they've basically combined into this form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But it further describes that Srimati Radharani is the Ladini Shakti, so she's basically the pleasure-giving potency of Krishna. And she's basically celebrated as the greatest devotee, because that's what she does. She just shows us how to serve Krishna. So we can also understand that like there's this idea of like pleasure and rasa in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The first chapter is like this description of the different types of relationships you can have with Krishna. So it's all like how in this world, like we have different types of relationships with people, and it makes it more relishable. You know, it's like the same thing with Krishna. So there's Srimati Radharani, but then there's also the principal, there's 8 principal gopis that are known as the Asthasakhis. And Lalita Devi is actually the leader of these Asthasakhis. So this is like a whole lot of facts about her, but I'm sure we'll go into it more. But Lalita Devi was born in the village of Karla, and later on, her father brought her to Unchigal. So I remember like in Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's Hills of Varshana, he like mentioned Unchigal quite a bit. So I was like, oh, okay, this is very interesting. And then Lalita Devi is 14 years, 8 months, and 27 days. That's her age, like her eternal age. And her mother is Sharda, and her father is Vishaka, and she's married to Bhairava. And he's a friend of Govardhan Mala, the husband of Chandravali. Remember Chandravali? Srimati Radharani's rival. It's just like
Yes.
so much bliss. Like I'm just laughing because it's like you think of the past times like, oh, Chandra.
Yeah.
And Srimati Lalita Devi is actually older than Srimati Radharani by 27 days. So even when we're celebrating Radhastami, you find that we celebrate Lalita Devi's appearance day before that. And then just in terms of her features, it's described that she has like a yellow complexion, the word Karochan is used, and she wears cloth like the colors of peacock feathers and the patterns of peacock feathers. And she loves playing the veena, that's her favorite instrument. And one of her special services is serving tambula and betel nut to the divine couple. She's also Rupa Manjari. I found that really interesting. I was like, wow. And
Yeah.
Rupa Manjari is Rupa Goswami. So when I learned that, I was like, oh, okay, this makes so much sense. Because like he's written Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he's given us active instruction. There's so much that he's given us. So it was really beautiful, and I thought, wow, this is the connection there. And then her Kundra Grove specifically is colored like lightning and is studded with rubies. So it's like I find like even when I read it in the Vrindavan temple, like the descriptions of the spiritual world are so they make it so real and they make you want to go there. Like imagine a place that's like almost like the
Yeah.
day of the ruby. Like it's crazy, but it's almost unfathomable. But it's like okay, but this is Krishna. This is Krishna's above. So it has to be that.
Yeah. It's almost like we just want to like get there like now. Like we're sitting in our boring brick houses, but here we've got like rubies and lightning. It's like amazing. Yeah. So next, I wanted to know how Lalita Devi is relevant to us who are practicing bhakti.
So I found like in the practice of bhakti, there's like great emphasis on taking shelter of a spiritual master. We always find that like you have some faith and you start practicing and so on, but part of that is taking shelter of a spiritual master. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita again, there's like so much from Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's that verse, Brahmanda Brahmite Kom Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasad Bhakti Bhakti Age. So out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who's fortunate gets the opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. And by the mercy of both Krishna and spiritual master, such a person can receive the seed of the Kripa of devotional service. So again, that emphasis on having somebody to give us the Kripa, the Bhakti Rata Bij, to give us that seed that then grows into a Kripa. We need someone to give that to us. We can't do it by ourselves. And then even once we've received this Bhakti Rata Bij, the seed of devotion, we need someone to guide us, to help us nourish this seed. And that is generally the spiritual master. And the important thing about the spiritual master is that they're actually connected to the parampara. And that goes all the way back to Krishna. Like when I know it's there in Bhagavad Gita also, like that first page or two, it describes like Srila Prabhupada, and it lists all those teachers going back to Krishna. This is like, wow. Like it actually goes back to Krishna. So just on that, like whenever we perform a service, we always begging or praying for the blessings of our teachers. And it's like even in Srimad Bhagavatam, the first verse actually of Srimad Bhagavatam starts with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there's the example of how we should be appealing to our teachers of blessings, because once we get their mercy, then our journey back to Krishna is much easier. But there's actually, when we say the Mangalacharan, it's Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Devi. So they, even Rupa Goswami is mentioned. But it's basically, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and of all the other preceptors on the path of devotional service. And towards the end of that translation, it's saying, I then offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Srimati Radharani, all those gopis headed by Lalita and Vishaka. So the point is that, like, we can't actually go it alone. We're always dependent on mercy. And Lalita Devi is actually part of that. Like it's described, like if you want to make Krishna happy, you need to make Srimati Radharani happy. And if Srimati Radharani gives you her favor, she kind of whispers in Krishna's ear. Like this one. And it's like, it's the same with Lalita Devi. Like if we pray to her, it's a similar concept. Like she says to Srimati Radharani, hey, look at this person. Like, you know, and like that, it's like, it's not what you know, it's who you know, kind of in a sense. But it's also obviously the sincerity with which you pray. So that's something I picked up. Like she's actually very much part of that group of Sakis who can really facilitate our connection with Krishna and just to serve him better.
And we need like all the help that we can get, and it's just amazing to see that, like, you know, like obviously like our whole parampara is like all linked and all back to Krishna, and then we've got like all of them helping us, and then we've got like, you know, to like get Mahaprabhu's mercy, we need like Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, and it's just like it just this like dasa and the das like theme just like keeps coming, and yeah, that's really like helpful to us to just remember to like be humble, but also like we need all of that we can get to like, you know, reach our goal in life.
Yeah, I think Tina Vanderpump described it. He's like, you have Radha and Krishna, and then you have, it's like, he describes it as a lotus flower. And so in the middle, you have Radha and Krishna, and then there's the 8 principal gopis around them, and then around them, there's another group, and then like, and then he describes it as like megabytes and megabytes, like gopis there, and it's like, our role is really just to serve them, and I think it's like really humbling also, because like sometimes we think, yeah, look at me, and like I'm going and serve Krishna, and it's like, not so fast.
Yeah. And actually I was listening to like some glorifications on Ayapur's Disciplines Day, and they were saying like in Kirtan, like it's very easy because you're like right in front, like to like get puffed up, and then you like notice your kirtans going a bit sideways, but mainly like when you're doing kirtan, like when you get puffed up, like you must always remember that above me, like Prabhupada is like his kirtan is so amazing, and then as you go and go, then you like see how like you see that you're just like some sort of like small tiny speck compared to how all of these gopis and gopas are serving, and then it's just like they like expert, and then you get to like Radharani and Krishna, and like nothing can like, you know, beat that. So it's amazing. So I think next I'd like to know, obviously we've now known the relevance of Lalita Devi in our lives, but what can we really learn from Lalita Saki?
So when I was reading, like it described that Lalita's word is Kandika, so it's like that of a jealous heroine who chastises her beloved. But this mood is never manifested in relation to a soul, which is interesting because it's like a pastime maybe I'll share forward later. how actually all the devotees, they're never thinking of themselves or of their own pleasure. It's always about how can we please Radha and Krishna and how can we facilitate them meeting each other. It's never about how can I meet Krishna. And Lalita Devi is also described to have like a very sharp tongue, like a very hot temperament. But she's also like good at composing and understanding riddles. And whenever engaged in transcendental quarrel, like Lalita Devi is always the one who opposes Krishna. And she like becomes furious with him, and like she'll speak outrageously, like, and she'll like make these really insolent, kind of arrogant retorts, But it's all affection. And actually, all the Asthasakhis have their different services that they perform for Radha and Krishna. And I felt that it just reemphasizes this fact that we don't have to be killers of one another. Like, there's certain basic things we do in our spiritual practice, like we follow the regulated principles and we chant our 16 rounds. But there's so much of scope for us to be ourselves with our different personalities, whether we have fiery personalities or mild personalities. And I think we do see like fiery personalities. You're like, oh, but everybody comes with their own flavor because that's who we are. We're all individuals, but it doesn't bar us from serving or from serving other devotees, from serving the Lord. We're not barred from it. And I find that very beautiful. And actually, in our parampara, we can even see that as well. Like, Prabhupada started off as a householder, then he took sannyas. Bhaktisiddhanta was like the complete opposite. He was like brahmachari completely, And then there's Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a householder like that. So just this whole idea of, okay, I can be who I am, but I can still serve. That's something that stood out for me because everybody comes with a different personality. And
oh, I said that's amazing.
there's also something else that I picked up from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is just, it goes back to that what you would describe in the das and the das mood. And how these personalities, even in sort of different types of leaders, they also come. Because it's described that Lalita Devi Swarup Damodar is actually a incarnation of Srimati Lalita Devi. And yeah, that was in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he actually acted as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal secretary. So no one could actually approach or present anything to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without his sanction. So it's this mood of service and of pleasing, but also saying, okay, I can still be myself. And another interesting thing I came across is like just how Advaita Acharya, he's Mahavishnu and Sadashiv. Gadadhar Pandit is actually Srimati Radharani and Asthaksaki. So like everywhere we look, we kind of we see these personalities. And even in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gadadhar Pandit play a very vital role. So it really goes back to how can I please, how can I serve, but I don't have to numb myself down or try and fit into a box in order to do that. And just one more thing on that point was there's a Rupa Goswami Stavamala. He basically wrote the Lalita Astakam. And one of the verses he says, I offer pranam unto the supremely charming Sri Lalita Devi, the treasure house of all good qualities. Upon seeing any young maiden anywhere in Braja and discerning that she is inclined towards her Priya Sakhi Srimati Radhika, Lalita immediately tells Radha that she must accept this person in her own party. And Radha obeys Lalita, who thus fulfills the maiden's desire. So So yeah, we talk about that a bit in the previous point, but it's going back to how we so dependent on mercy. You have to have this mood of service and not this mood of like, hey, it's me, all right.
Yeah. Oh, every time I hear like a new point, I'm just like, oh, like we can really see like how all this is linked, but still like we can hear it so many times and we can still like be so amazed because I mean that's the pastimes. That's how much nectar there is in it.
It's like ever fresh, actually. Like I didn't realize it, but like initially when I touched on the topic of Lalita Devi, and I was like, information. When I just realized the topic is just like over my head, and I can only feel like there's only so much you can understand through knowledge. Most of it is realization, and that's your practice.
So speaking about pastimes, can you share a pastime of Lalita Devi?
I heard this actually from Radharani. She's been doing a lot of research on Vrindavan specifically. So he's just describing how Pitta Paksha, so we offer like we basically worship the ancestors, but it's basically to deliver them. She's actually to help them. Also, if they have not gone back, to basically try and facilitate that. So he's describing how actually Pitta Paksha originated like 5,000 years ago during Krishna's pastimes on earth. And once it was in Yavat actually, Jatila and Kutila, like when you hear those names, here comes here comes the drama. They said to Srimati Radharani, listen, the 15 days of Pitta Paksha is very inauspicious, so you are not allowed to leave the house. You're going to stay in your room here, in your head, and you can't go anywhere. And Srimati Radharani was just like, what? 15 days? Like, how am I going to survive these 15 days and not see Krishna? Like, this is terrible, and it's like described that like just like with the blinking of the eyes, like the gopis feel like to be many millions of years. So like imagine 15 days. It's like what? So Lalita Srimati Radharani is obviously very upset and she started crying. The Maharaj described this so nicely. He said that as Srimati Radharani was almost upset and crying, she just thought of Lalita Devi and she appeared. Like Srimati Radharani didn't have to say, Lalita Devi, come here, or send a message, like how they use the words, and like, no. Radharani just had to think of Lalita Devi, and she appeared. And it reminds me of like one of something Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada is like, a first-class servant will do something before you can even ask them to. That's actually like, that's a first-class servant. You don't have to ask them. Yeah. So this is like being so in tune with that, and yeah. So anyway, Lalita Devi appears and she's to Srimati Radharani, what's wrong? Like, what's happening? And Srimati Radharani says, oh, this is the situation. I can't see Krishna for 15 days with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law saying completely inauspicious. So Lalita Devi said, oh, okay. Now part of her role is to bring Radha and Krishna together. So she said, okay, well, we can perform prayers to Goddess Sanji. So Srimati Radharani was like, what do you mean? Because like traditionally she's worshipped by Brahmins through Gayatri Mantra. So Srimati Lalita Devi said, okay, well, what we'll do is that you will need to go and pick flowers and make it into colored powder and make beautiful patterns in order to worship this goddess Sanji. And Radharani says, but this is not commonly done. No, this is actually not really, you can enjoy such a say. So Lalita Devi says, don't worry, I'll sort that out. I'm going to get Purnamasi to sanction it. So Purnamasi is basically known as like a female priest, actually. So whenever the gopis need any sort of clarity, you could say, on rituals, they go to Purnamasi. So Lalita Devi went to Purnamasi and she said, look, we need you to sanction this because Jatila and Krishna are going to come just now, and then Srimati Radharani is not going to be able to leave and meet Krishna. So that's exactly what happened. You know, they told Jatila and Krishna, you know what, we're going to worship Goddess Sanji, but these are the things we need to do. And Jatila and Krishna were like, no, we're going to go to Purnamasi. And Purnamasi was like, no, it's there. You know, in some esoteric deep part of the scripture, it's there. Don't worry. And so there you have it. Srimati Radharani was about to leave. And as she was picking flowers, she got to see Krishna. And that's the role of Srimati Lalita Devi. That's what she does. She facilitates this meeting of Radha and Krishna. And it's incredibly funny when you listen to the details of these pastimes. And I can really say, as a person who loves reading fiction and non-fiction, I know what Radhika said. But honestly, like when you see the contrast between, I mean, it isn't really, you can't compare, but like just these pastimes bring so much of joy, and there's like so much in the pastimes. There's laughter, there's comedy, there's just, you know, there's romance. There's like everything in there.
Yeah.
And you're also listening to the pastime of Krishna, and I feel that like it does draw you to Krishna. It does draw you into that space of the spiritual world. Not that necessarily you could necessarily say like you've experienced it, but it develops that attraction. And I feel like that's the whole point of reading scriptures, is developing that attraction and that attachment to the Lord and his associates. Because one day we're going to go there, we may see them, and we say, hey, do this, you know. So.
Yeah. And it's amazing, like sometimes we're not as fortunate to maybe like visit all these holy places all the time or visit it all because there's so many, but you know, we like can hear about them and immediately like we're transported there. Like we could immediately picture the rubies and the lightning already. And then like when you actually go one day, if we're fortunate enough to go, then you can like sort of feel it. Like we might not or I might not have the eyes for it, but you can feel that potency that's just there. And it's just like it just like seals the like fate right there. You're just like, this is all real. Like sometimes we might hear something and we may not be able to comprehend it. But when you like really experience all of these sort of signs here and there, you're just like it, as crazy as it may sound to anyone, it really is like real.
I think that's exactly it. It's like the holy name is the transcendental sound vibration. And we know this like so much, is that like chanting the holy name is associating with Krishna. But then it's like, why are we still attached to so many things of the world, you know? It's not because it's not real, it's because we're covered with so many of the anarthas, unwanted things, that it's like a process to get there. But yeah, like you're saying, like just developing attraction for these places, I think it's probably what's going to help us as well. You know,
Yeah.
you can envision something, and it's again like these places are transcendental. So I think some of Krishna Maharaj said this is like, just if you just close your eyes and you think of Govardhan and think of Vrindavan, it's like you're actually there. I feel like some of these concepts is like, it's almost unfathomable to the human mind, but it's real. And I feel like Prabhupada created this space for us to not say, this is Krishna, you're going to believe this is Krishna, and he shoves it down our throat. But it's like ISKCON has a place for us to actually experience these things. And it comes in small bumps, it does, and it's like, it happens. Because it's like, oh, I'm so elevated. It's just, there's these little moments, and you're like, oh, Krishna's real. You know?
Yes,
and there's
definitely.
faith, and then you just keep going with them.
Yeah. But I'd like to thank you so much for your time and for sharing all these wonderful pastimes and all this nectar. It was just like
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare